news magazine program, which takes a look at happenings across the continent. Which also takes a look at happenings out of Africa and how they affect our continent. I am your host, Boh Elvis. In today's edition of the program, we are going to be taking a look at two issues: the UK's controversial plan to send asylum seekers to Rwanda. We have our team of African analysts and experts here in the studio to look at it from the African angle. How do we see this in Africa? That's going to be our first topic for today's edition of the show. And in the second part of the program, we are going to be talking about consequences of the United States granting temporary protection status to Africans. How is it going to affect the continent, and how is it going to affect the countries concerned? That is going to be our topic. However you're watching, wherever you're watching, this is 90 Minutes in Africa. It is coming to you from my media prime, the African Eye. You can watch us on Canal Sat channel 309. You can watch us on Emos 17. You can also watch us on Swaycom networks, as well as on Facebook using my media prime TV, and on YouTube using BT Media Group. For those who are watching us on Facebook, you can feel free to send us your SMS or your WhatsApp using the number you're going to find on the screen. And of course, you can go to the Facebook page and share to as many groups as possible to invite others to watch. My guests are already with me in the studio. Welcome to the program, Kediah, Robert Malagfe.
Greetings to you, sir. Greetings to my co-panelists. Greetings to all those watching us at home. Greetings to the entire institution of my media. I'm honored to be here to give my own views on issues that concern our continent, Africa, to ensure that we fight against neocolonialism and the exploitation of Africa by the West.
Thank you, Kediah Malagfe, the usual consultant of 90 Minutes in Africa, Mr. Slow and Steady Facts, Ndiwum Emmanuel, is here with us in the studio. Thank you, Ndiwum Emmanuel, for coming to the show.
Yes, thank you very much, Boh Elvis. Good afternoon to my able and fine brains who are constituting part of the panel this afternoon. And I want to think that it's always a pleasure when we have to talk about our dear mother continent, Africa. Anything that touches Africa touches any lover of Africa. And so to speak, we'll always accept the invitation to talk about what touch on Africa. Once more, thanks for the invitation.
Thank you, Ndiwum Emmanuel. Dr. Ndimancho, of course, Dr. Ndimancho, happy to host you.
It's a pleasure, Boh Elvis. It's not the first time of coming to 90 Minutes in Africa. And I think that 90 Minutes in Africa is breaking grounds, and it has become, of course, an inevitable Pan-African program. And of course, we are happy that it is reaching far and to the crooks and crannies of Africa, and is creating the necessary impact. And it's always happy to be with people who can be able to contribute something more for the development of Africa. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Dr. Ndimancho. One of our panelists is, of course, going to join us any moment from now. Sheikh Mohammed. He was with us last week. That's an imam and a scholar who is supposed to be with us any moment from now. Of course, he was blocked by traffic due to the heavy downpour in Vola today. Dr. Ndimancho, we are going to launch straight away with the first topic of discussion today: the UK's controversial plan to send asylum seekers to Rwanda. It has, of course, been commented by the media. It has been commented on the social media. We are expecting, according to the plan, about 28,000 people per year are going to be sent to Rwanda. That is asylum seekers, and the United Kingdom is expected to pay Rwanda approximately 120 million pounds per year. The decision has been criticized by the United Nations Refugee Agency, as well as many NGOs, as they say it is contrary to the spirit of the Geneva Convention. And so tens of thousands of people are going to be coming to Africa. Rwanda, which is one of Africa's fastest growing economies, are going to be coming to Africa in the years ahead. So How is this going to be helpful to our continent? Is this good news for Africa? Is this bad news for Africa? That is what we are going to be analyzing. Our African sons of the soil are with us here in the studio. Kediah, Malagfe, I begin with you. I want you to open this topic. First of all, let's take a look at the positive impact. Is there any positive impact of if the United Kingdom sends asylum seekers to Rwanda? Is there any positive impact you can see for now?
As far as it concerns human beings, all human beings are resourceful, and everywhere human beings are sent or where they stay, they will definitely have positive and negative impact with regard to their immediate environment. But for me, I would like us to analyze it first of all in a chronological manner before we start to talk about the advantages or the disadvantages with regards to this. We should first of all know the difference between a refugee and asylum seeker. A refugee is someone that is running out of his country in danger, moving to another country. And according to the international law, such a desperate person must be protected. That's when you are a refugee. You are from your country running to another country. But asylum has to do with when you are present already in the said nation. Then you seek your asylum in that country. Now, a country like Britain has accepted that, according to the norms, that they will accept and take people that are running from other nations to come into their country for safety. They will receive them, yes, for their safety. And when they are there as refugees, they will be, if they want to seek asylum, they will send them back to Rwanda so that from Rwanda they can continue with the asylum procedures or processes. So those are the aspects that I want us to know, the likely difference between them. They are very light. And when they send you back to Rwanda to seek your asylum, you should know that there in Rwanda you should have your fundamental human right, which has to do with freedom from racial discrimination. Your right to your thoughts should be respected. Human rights should be respected, and the above. Now, talking about the accord between Rwanda and Britain, you realize that if Rwanda is accepting such a accord, then Rwanda have definitely looked at the impact of what 100 million pounds will have to do in their economy. I don't think all of us, we praise the president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, because as you earlier said when the program started, that is one of the fastest developing countries. And so he will not go into any accord with any country without having the benefit or the impact. But the honest truth that we Africans we have, and we Africans we know, is the agenda when our brothers are maybe going through the ocean to another country because they are looking for better living standard and condition. And what we hear that when they suffer, some of them even spend 1-2 million to get to those countries, and when they are there and they are being sent back to Africa, that is really the problem us Africans we have behind that we don't say in the open. But I think that that is the main issue. As the other will speak, then I'll go into detail in the next round of talk to enlighten on that.
And Ndiwum Emmanuel, after the decision, the controversial decision by UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, we've had a lot of people that have been withdrawing their asylum request, because we are not only talking here about Africans, we are talking about people from across the world, we are talking about people from Ukraine and other areas of the globe. But after hearing this news, many of them have been withdrawing their asylum request, which makes us to begin to think and begin to doubt whether we are not human beings here in Africa, or whether there should be a reason for people to fear coming to live here in our beloved continent, Africa, especially in a developed country like Rwanda.
No, Boh, permit me disagree with you for the first time on your question. You see, that the part of the question that makes me to disagree with you is when you talked about people being feared or being afraid to live in Africa, or the thing that us in Africa. No, look, I think Sheikh will be joining us a while ago, and in his spiritual language, he always likes to say life started in Africa, and so the first man on earth was from Africa. I don't want to go into that, just an aside. Coming to your question proper, I want to look at it differently. It's true that there has been a lot of controversy surrounding this decision. But I want to question the role of the UN Refugee Agency when they come out crying. They know the UN itself has failed to protect what produces refugees and asylum seekers in the world. If they have failed to produce or to protect or to prevent what produces asylum seekers and refugees in the world, they should not come out to cry when people take their individual decisions to make certain pronouncements. But to start with it squarely, you and I are only analyzing from a distance. We don't know what must have transpired behind the curtains between Rwanda and UK. That's the first point. I think there is something that only the Rwanda's administration and that of UK can actually tell us what deal they have struck behind the curtains to know who gains what from what. So there, we can only give a distance analysis. Second point, I wouldn't like to look at it as if Africa is a dumping ground, because this is something I heard somewhere in a sister channel when somebody was analyzing it from the point as if Africa was becoming a dumping ground for refugees, or refugees were no longer useful to the UK government. And I say no. I say no, why? Because for centuries, we have had African fine brands that have been used in Europe, this UK, US, I mean all parts of the Western world for their own development. And that is why we have been crying, brethren. Being a refugee or an asylum seeker does not take away the competence that is in you. I want to appreciate Rwanda for accepting it, for whatever deal that they took behind the curtains. They are telling us and they are giving us a lesson in Africa that yes, we can make safe havens in Africa. If they are accepted to take back these asylum seekers or refugees from UK back to Rwanda, it means that Rwanda has what it takes to resettle these people in her country. And so it should be an applause. We should know, like you said in your introductory statement, Rwanda is one of the fastest growing economy in Africa today. Where our brother Kediah said we have been applauding the president of that country. Of course, we have been doing, and we are still doing. Accepting to take this initiative to host or to resettle as refugees or asylum seekers in his country means that he has measured the strength of his economy and the political stability in his country fit enough to resettle these people. Because any country that takes in refugees must be first politically stable. Take the case of Cameroon. 12 years back, Cameroon used to settle, to take in refugees from the east, the north, even from Nigeria. At the time when the Biafran war was at its peak, Cameroon assisted them seriously in terms of keeping refugees. That is because at that time Cameroon was politically stable. And so when you look at the stakes today, you see the difference. It means that if you look at the case of Rwanda, Rwanda is gaining political stability. Rwanda is getting economically stable. Rwanda is getting socially stable. And so it permits them to accept, to incubate people of such status without fear. Of course, the deal of the money that you said, that is where I say only the two partners knows the deal that they have struck behind. But of course, I think I personally, I believe in that initiative, because those who think Rwanda wants to become a dumping ground to refugees thrown back from Europe, I want to ask them, was Europe a dumping ground for refugees running from Africa? That is where.
Thank you, Ndiwum Emmanuel, Dr. Ndimancho. Let me, before I hand over the microphone to you, this story written on Sky News, asylum seekers willing to go into hiding to avoid UK government's Rwanda plan. Some people seeking refuge in the UK say they don't believe the government's assertion that Rwanda is a safe country that will treat them well. Asylum seekers have warned that they are willing to go into hiding to avoid being sent to Rwanda for processing. You know, so that is the story. And then we get a quote. There are people who are seriously thinking about going into hiding, and people who already claim asylum are thinking of withdrawing the application, and some are even going underground. So I want you to, Dr. Ndimancho, to get your analysis on this. Should asylum seekers in Europe be afraid to come to Africa?
Well, I think that every refugee, meaning somebody who is running away, runs away from something. And what he is running away to, his point of destination is harbor. Meaning that what? He's looking for protection. That is it. Your point of departure is a point of torture, is a point of insecurity. And then your destination is supposed to be that El Dorado that you are looking for, that good life that you are supposed to live. And no matter wherever you land yourself, what you are looking for is the security that you lacked from your point of departure. Now, coming back to your question, Mr. Boh, I think that you quoted the 1951 Convention on Refugee, and there is a principle of that 1951 of that convention that talks about non-refoulement. Non-refoulement. It means that what? There is that principle that protects every refugee wherever he is, and that no country has a right to send the refugee where he is already feeling comfortable to another place. Every country adheres to this, and to me, Britain is going, in as much as Britain thinks that they are still sending them to a place where they have harbor and they have security, they are going against the rights of these refugees who were already feeling comfortable. Because when you are running away, you have the choice of where to run to for your security. And these people have seen Britain as a place where they have security. And if Britain has to turn around to send them away to another country, means that they're going against the 1951 convention. That's said. You know, Britain has forgotten so fast. In 1820, you know how the British actually came to South Africa in their numbers. It's because they ran away from the Napoleonic Wars. And the British government in 1820 took a decision, because there was joblessness and all of those. They decided to actually, send many Britons from Britain to South Africa, to settle there, in order that they may have jobs and all of those, because there were mining and whatsoever. And you remember that on the 17th of March 1820, there was about 270 Britons that were put on board the Nottingham and the Chapman that landed in South Africa for jobs. And I think that Britain is supposed to learn from this, that there are certain moments whereby, your citizens can feel uncomfortable and they want to have comfort. Imagine that at that very period in 1820, that the South African, even though the South African was under Britain at that time, if the South African government decided that British will not send their citizens to South Africa, it would have been a problem. So Britain has forgotten that so soon. Now, I think that one issue, I'm sure Britain is copying from Australia. I know Australia has done this before. And the United Nations Commission for Refugees has not been able to take Australia to task on this. And Britain is repeating the same thing. Other countries will do the same thing someday and nothing will be done. But I think this should be discouraged. I'm happy that a country like Rwanda, first of all, is being looked upon as a country where, they can send refugees to be received by Rwanda. That is already a good thing. On the positive note, I'm happy that, because even the British government has said Rwanda seems to be the safest in Africa. I remember there's a British foreign government who said that Rwanda seems to be the safest in Africa. I'm happy that at one moment we can start begin to think that people can find security, people can get harbor in Africa. And he was collaborated by the Rwanda Minister of Foreign Affairs, who said this is after a lofty idea, because we the Rwandans, we have taken all the precautions and the necessary measures to receive these refugees. Means that it's a long-standing, it's just not something that just happened. But we need to be very, very careful about how we handle human beings. Because some of these people who are supposed to be sent forth in another country, which is not their country of destination, and who are supposed to be protected, I think that Britain needs to have a rethink. First, you think that these people who are running away, most of them don't run away because they are running away from war. That's what we should know. They are not running from war or insecurity. Most of them are people who have gone through the sea, through the ocean and all those things because they are looking for a better haven for themselves. We have had many people who have run away like that, and they are feeling good and they are fine in their individual countries. But then even people run away like that and they feel that they are already comfortable. And then you want to get them off from where they have started taking roots, from their new land, from their new families that they have perhaps made where they are, and you are sending them, uprooting them and sending them to another country. That is, we call that psychological trauma that you are even instilling in these people. And I think that the British government need to rethink. And two, we the Africans, we are supposed to be able to know that there is also self-security in Africa, which of course we are supposed to consider. That the security that we get when we are running out from individual country is not only in Europe. But the third negative thing that I've talked about is, I hope it is not another plan to bring them to Africa, to give them back, to leverage them to their individual countries where they are running from. Remember what happened to the Ambazonian separatists from Nigeria, who were like refugees in Nigeria, and they were sent back to Cameroon. I hope that this is another ploy, because once they are back in Cameroon, in Africa, it is very difficult for individual countries, especially those who are a threat to their individual country. It is very difficult for those countries to have a partnership with Rwanda to send them back to their countries.
Thank you, Dr. Ndimancho. Kediah, Robert Malagfe. Of course, we've also had news that Denmark has been discussing a similar deal with Rwanda, and maybe sometimes in future Hungary may also be interested, which means that there is a need for the entire international community and nations to work together to ensure that peace reigns in the world, that we don't have wars and conflicts. Because today, it may be happening in Africa, tomorrow it may be in Europe. There is a need for everything, mechanism to be put in place to ensure that conflicts are stopped across the world.
Yes, for sure. The international community is supposed to come together and get a lasting solution to that. But we should also understand that despite the fact that those treaties have been signed, and each country has done his or her contribution to this international organization, we should know that first of all. But when refugee comes in your country, you have another extra burden, which this country feels that is too much. You see a country like Britain, who have thousands of people annually, the taxpayers' money to take care of them. So when these taxpayers in their House of Reps, they come to say that this is too much, we should look for alternative. It is very correct. But what I want to say is that we should not get confused between a refugee and asylum seeker. No refugee has ever been prohibited from entering into UK. When they accept you into their country, you are safe. Then they send you to Rwanda. If you want to stay there for a longer period of time to seek your asylum, then that is another issue that they will send you to Rwanda. Like my co-panelist here was saying, like the case of Ayok Tabe and the rest separatists that were in Nigeria. They said they were in Nigeria as refugees, but their process of getting an asylum was not yet done. So we should be able to get this too. You don't need a process, any process as a refugee to go into a country. It is law that when you are desperate, you want to move to somebody's country, they have that obligation to protect you. But when you are seeking an asylum, like for instance, we have countries that the asylum is 1 year, 2 years. There are even some Cameroonians that are in countries like Cyprus, that way you go there, you seek asylum, they say they will keep you in their country for 10 years to ensure that you are secured for 10 years. So we should know that these policies are there, and we should know that these international policies are there, but the interest of the said country is very, very important to the people. Now, when we talk about refugee, it is clear that when you are a refugee, it is a push factor and not a pull factor. It can be political a problem, persecution, it can be a war, it can be a religion and whatsoever, which all of us, we know all these aspects that makes you a refugee. But when you are in a country and you are supposed to be protected, fine, you are protected. If after 1 month, 2 months, you see, okay, for instance, like in Cameroon, we know that, are you aware that Cameroon have more than 1,800 refugees now in this country as we speak? And asylum seekers that already have a document, more than 5,000 as we speak. Those that left Nigeria came here. Those that left Central African Republic, they came here. Those that left from other countries in West Africa that they are here in Cameroon, they saw that their country is safe. Some of them, the refugees, they decided to return. And some of them looking that Cameroon is better, even though their country is now better or safe, but they decided they want to remain in Cameroon because it's more better than their country. That's when the process of asylum goes ahead. So we should be able to distinguish. And the Britain has not said that when they receive you as a refugee in Britain, then when you want to seek asylum, they send you to Rwanda to go ahead with the process, which means that there as an asylum seeker, they can accept you same as they can refuse. And same as even if you are in Britain, and you seek your asylum, same as they can accept and same as they can refuse and send you back to your country. So we should know that asylum seeking is not something that is 100% that they must accept it. No, they reject some. But as a refugee, they accept everybody. But as an asylum seeker which you apply, they reject some and they take some based on what you have presented. So we should be able to distinguish between these two so that we don't get confused.
Thank you, Kediah, Malagfe. Time for us now, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome Sheikh Mohammed Ngubong, who is a scholar and also a Pan-Africanist with us. Thank you so much. This is his second time of coming to 90 Minutes in Africa. Sheikh Mohammed Ngubong, we are at a time when most people here in Africa, so many people are trying to look for ways to travel out of the continent because according to them, they have the possibility to succeed over there more than here. There seem to be lots of bottlenecks in Africa, according to testimonies from people. And at this particular point in time, we see what Rwanda is doing to the extent that the UK is considering relocating some asylum seekers to Rwanda. What should this tell us as Africans? Isn't this a call for us to know that we have the potential here in Africa to develop the continent and even take care of our people?
Thank you very much, Mr. Elvis. And I'd like to show my joy and gratitude towards the other co-panelists for the passion with which they're defending the African refugee, the African asylum seeker, and so on and so forth. But my own view of the matter is, even though being a refugee can be understood, even though political differences might make some people seek asylum elsewhere, where the ideology will not be a handicap. But I think here in Africa, we should be able to handle our own housekeeping job in a much better way. Why is it that there are only Africans running all over the planet? Why is it that there are only Africans dying in boats and drowning in the sea? Why is it that it's only in Africa that we have all the wars and all the famine and the disease to a very high extent, even though there are also things in other places? It is high time. You talked about Rwanda and Paul Kagame. I'd like to remind you that when he was the president of the African Union, he made a proposal that just 1% of all the custom receipts of all African countries were enough to finance the African Union. If they could just put aside 1% of what all the custom intake is of the African countries, it will be enough to finance the African Union and make an African Union which will be an African Union working for Africa rather than an African Union which is there to serve the interests of Europe. Because they are the finance, he says, he who pays the piper calls the tunes. So it is not surprising then that it is Rwanda again, where you have Paul Kagame. I remember an image of him going into the gutters to clean the street. And as a result, Kigali is one of the cleanest streets in Africa. Africa as a whole, not only Rwanda, should follow suit. Africa needs unity, self-sufficiency, and discretion. We have neither of these. We need unity in terms of custom, budget, education, even physical, in terms of technology. Our monetary system, which Gaddafi mentioned so long ago, and he was killed. Now the global elite is so weak that this is the time Africans can do that. Any African leader who wants to make his own currency now can assure you will not be killed, because there's no one powerful enough to do that today. That is why you see Russia backing their currency with gold. You find Iraq creating dinar backed by gold. Saudi Arabia deciding to sell petrol in order to receive Chinese yuan. something for which Saddam Hussein was killed because he tried to sell petroleum to receive euro at a time when the global elite was very strong. So we need to bring that unity into place now, political unity, economic unity, and monetary unity, in such a way that our African problems don't have to go elsewhere. We don't have to be looking and seeking asylum elsewhere. I don't know if people really understand how humiliating it is to be a black man in some of those countries when everyone, people are running from fire from all directions and coming. And you're sitting in the subway, and then you find all those British people or Americans looking at you. And you say to yourself, do these people really think that I can have the full competence of a human being? When they look at the Chinese, they can see the technological prowess of China. When they look at the Japanese, they can reflect on the Japanese technological and political achievements. When they look at an Indian, they're not perhaps the most advanced, but they've succeeded in staying together as one nation with 1-point-something billion people. Now, why is it that in Africa, we always have to be at each other's throats, at the least pretext? Africans are not bad, but we are naive in our approach. I've been saying several times that there are certain types of technology which African leaders are not taking into account in their evaluation of their consideration for peace and stability. Today, it is possible to agitate people and cause revolt by using technological means, just by putting something into the water or sending certain types of electromagnetic waves. You can cause a revolt. Now, African leaders, how many of them take those factors into consideration when they're looking for stability? If they don't do that, we'll keep having this kind of thing. Why? Because Africa has got more than 90% of the world's natural resources. And without the unity and all the other things I've been mentioning, these resources will not be a blessing, but a curse, because people will keep fighting for it. And as people fight for it, they will cause wars, they will cause divisions, they will cause factions, as they want to replace different types of people. So the issue here is not whatever Britain should do. Those are secondary issues. The primary issue is, why is it that the refugees and the asylum seekers and so on are mostly from Africa? Why? Africa should address that problem. And Rwanda is showing that small Rwanda, with a population of 13 million, a surface area of about 26,000 kilometers square, is able to do it in such a way that Britain considers using Rwanda as part of a solution to its problem. What will happen if a big country like Nigeria with 200-something million decides to do a similar initiative like Rwanda? What will happen if all the other countries in Africa do the same? There will be no more question of asylum seekers in Europe. So let the African leaders integrate all the types of nefarious technologies which are used to divide them in order to better exploit the natural resources. Let them find a way to get out of this economy of digging minerals, because others want them to stay there, because that is the best way they can exploit the great riches of Africa. The sooner we do that, the better for us. But let us not think that they are going to leave us freely to go and do that without doing everything to make mayhem. And it is up to us to show that we are stronger than that, by having a high enough spiritual vibration, not to be able to go down into hate, go down into anguish, to go down into corruption, to go down into all those things, and stand up erect, like some people have demonstrated in Burkina Faso with Thomas Sankara, like they've demonstrated with Paul Kagame in Rwanda, despite the Hutu and Tutsi fiasco which happened some time ago, which was a culmination of historical events instigated by the colonialists. They've come out of it, and they have a society which is stable, showing that the rest of Africa can do it. The $24 trillion of natural wealth in Congo is a blessing. But the way we are acting now, that will be a curse, because it will be a cause for millions to be killed for nothing. So the conclusion of my intervention is that Africa should unite in all aspects I mentioned. And this is the time to introduce some new directions. In the United States, for example, you have 5,915 patents which have been classified top secret. And some of these patents can put whole industries out of business. Now, They were considered top secret because they served the interests of the global elite. President Trump, in around 2018 or 19, I think, decided to order the CIA to release 1,000 of these in order to help humanity, because you had the things which would bring cures to some diseases which are today incurable. The CIA totally ignored him. But now that the cabal, or the global elite, or whatever we call it, is falling, we should look forward to these technologies coming out sooner or later. And if that should come out, Africa is in a position to take maximum advantage. Because when we start teaching certain things in our schools which is not compatible with what is now written in textbooks, there will be no Nobel laureates whose reputation will be tarnished by such a thing. And we can actually go ahead of the others and demonstrate, like we did with the mobile phone, by showing that we can develop uses for the mobile phone which Europeans could not dream of in the beginning.
Thank you, Sheikh Mohammed Ngubong. Thank you so much for that wonderful intervention. Of course, we do the last tour of the table on this topic, so that we move to the second topic. The consequences of U.S. granting temporary protection status for Africans. Of course, the information, this topic has been prompted by the U.S. granting temporary protection status to Cameroonians in the U.S. Fleeing war, separatist war, as well as those fleeing the attacks of Boko Haram in the north. So in Ndiwum Emmanuel, you've listened to the development intervention of Sheikh Mohammed Ngubong. Now we are in a point in Africa where, as I was saying, many people want to travel out of the continent, many people want to go to Europe, many people want to go to the United States, where they say they're going for greener pastures. What then can we do to make Africa a destination of choice, to make Africa to become the land where people come for greener pastures? That is, I want you to give suggestions about what we can do to ensure that people will be in the United States and they will say, please, I think I need to look for a way to come to Africa, to come to Cameroon and settle there with my family, because this is where things are happening.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Boh. Africa, first of all, is a beautiful continent. We only need to clean it up so that the beauty should be sold to the whole world. If you come to my country, Cameroon, and you go to Ndimancho, every white man would like to visit that place. Why not make it more visible so that more people should come? If you go to Ghana to visit the Ghanaian palaces in the days of Kwame Nkrumah, and you see the beauty that is inscribed there, it sees that we lack only a touching. When you go to Egypt, when you go to Sudan, even in terms of war, the natural, beautiful endowment of these countries have remained to their test. That is to say, our leaders first, because they are the ones who have to listen to us and do what the African citizens want. I have often said we need an Africa where there is no protocol. If we break the law of protocol in Africa, our development will be sold to the whole world. When I say the law of protocol, what do I mean? Do you know that this same Britain that we are talking about do not have the law of protocol? That is to say, in a situation where every citizen is taken equally, everybody's idea counts for development. In essence, we need one Africa. We need to forget about these colonial boundaries. We need to forget about these colonial languages. We need to forget about this colonial instrumentalization. We need to think Africa. We have to think Africa in an African context. That is to say, the beauty that we have in our continent, we come back home, we develop it. Thank God we have our brothers in the diaspora. We have a very rich African diaspora that have already tapped a lot in the diaspora. If Africa was to be made a safe haven today, we will need to bring them all back on board to create a new Africa where the white man will need to pay us. We need to come back to belong in Africa. That said, there is something my co-panelist Kediah said a while ago that I was pondering over it. Maybe I will be challenged. I wanted to think that if you go back to this United Nations Refugee Convention of 1951, I think it is clearly stated. The first step of becoming a refugee is by seeking an asylum. All of us are intellectual minds. I'm not a legal mind, but I think I went through it somehow. The first step of becoming a refugee is seeking for an asylum. And after the asylum, when you are granted the asylum status, that is when the country receiving you can grant you a full refugee status. That said, with the action of Britain today, we can also see that as Czech just came from behind to reinforce my thought that for those who think Rwanda is becoming a dumping site, I don't take it that way. Leaving aside international law, international convention, because we were to look about international law, Britain has already even broken that law. Because in the international law, Britain in the first place was not even supposed to deport them, or to send them back, or to start looking for where to send them. And I think Britain is doing it at this time because they had earlier exited from the EU. If they were still in the EU, the law will cut off with them. They have done a wrong thing that I'm appreciating because it is creating a new destination for Africa and opening the minds of other African countries to know that, look, we can make it here in Africa. We can create a safe havens in Africa. And that is why I said when I took the mic the first time that I appreciate Rwanda. If they have not been working hard to preserve political stability, economic and social stability, after the genocide of 1994, nobody in the world would have thought, even if it is going to be a dumping site, you dump something where it will be safe there, because we are talking about human lives here. So I think in this light, Rwanda, we need to, keep aside these things of international law, conventions, and look at it from the perspective of economic, political, and social stability. Why was Rwanda the only country chosen? Why did Britain not choose to send them back but to Cameroon and choose to send them to Rwanda? Because there is a political stability in that country.
Thank you, Ndiwum Emmanuel.
All right. I'll still say it and I'll repeat it again. When you go to a country, you are a refugee because you are desperate. You even stay in a camp. They even give you food to eat because at that time you are a refugee. You don't go out of the camp. You follow your process to seek for asylum. When you have an asylum now, that's when you leave the camp to stay within the society with people. That you can even be permitted to have a job. An asylum now could be 1 year, could be 10 years, depending on the country. So we should be able to distinguish between these two. You go to a country, when you're a refugee, they don't ask you to apply to follow up your document. You're a refugee. Like for instance, if you are from those that left from Malagfe, for instance, due to this present crisis and they dash to Nigeria, would they be asking them to apply or process? Those that leave Ukraine and were going to the other countries in Europe, would they be asking them to apply for asylum seeking procedure? No, they are refugees. At that time, they are desperate. What they do is they give them security at that moment. Then if you want to apply now for asylum to be in the country for a longer period of time, then you process it now, your document is called asylum. So we should be able again to distinguish between a refugee and asylum. You don't seek asylum when you are out of a country. You should be in that country, in the territory.
Anyway, thank you, Kediah. Let me just read what Amnesty International has written on that, so that we just Amnesty International on the website. They say
one second.
Okay.
You need to know that when we are talking about these refugees, there are refugees, like he rightly said, coming from push factors like wars.
Exactly.
There are other refugees coming from the political persecutions.
Exactly.
And we need to
push factors.
Okay, let's see. So Amnesty International says that a refugee is a person who has fled their own country because they are at risk of human rights violations and persecutions there, and the risk to their safety and life were so great that they felt that they had no choice but to live and seek safety outside their country because their own government cannot or will not protect them from those dangers. Now, an asylum is a person who has left their country and is seeking protection from persecution and serious human rights violations in another country, but who hasn't yet been legally recognized as a refugee and is waiting to receive a decision on the asylum claim. And a migrant, okay, of course, my migrant, that one is going to be
migrant is the two of them.
Of course. So, Dr. Ndimancho,
I think you should organize a debate.
Ndimancho, your suggestion
Yes.
On how to make Africa a place of greener pastures for Europeans and Americans before we move to the second topic.
Yeah, I think that Africans should see this as a blessing rather than a curse, you know. You remember in the 1880s, during the period of slave trade, the people who developed the Americas were Africans. Europe and Americans, they came to Africa to take Africans in the form of slaves. And if America, especially, is where it is today, it is thanks to the slave trade during the 1800s. And therefore, this will be like an event that is repeating itself. Maybe Rwanda wants to tap from this 1800 experience of the Americas to be able to develop more its own country. This is very possible. And I know that Kagame is a very wise man on that. He could be able to go back from history and see how Africans who have been, kidnapped from Africa to go develop Europe and America, who are today now looking to go and live in that America that they developed, that are being sent back to Africa. And maybe this could be a very good moment for any African president who is actually thinking ahead to think that, okay, if we can also do what Europe and America did to Africa in the 1800s, this could better our country. Who knows? Maybe Kagame has already set up maybe plantations and whatsoever where these people are going to be working. I don't think they are coming to Rwanda to come and be sitting and watching television or actually being fed for nothing. They are coming to work. They are coming to develop Rwanda the more. And we have to accept this. Remember, there is Patrick Lumumba who talks about the Magufulization of Africa, of African leaders. And of course, this is just one of the steps forward. Sheikh made mention of that. That Kagame is that kind of person who has seen, who knows his behind, who knows his present, and he is looking at the future. And he has made many outings with African presidents to tell them that we can be able to do what Europe is doing today if only we come together. And I'm sure that you want to preach by example. Rather than allow your own citizens to go and be slaves over there, why not bring the citizen? He wants to show African countries that he is preaching by example and that he is ready. Tomorrow he's going to mock up African president because he has talked, in terms of words, discourses. Now he wants to act. He wants to incarnate his words with action and to tell African president tomorrow that I am preaching with example. Look at what I have done with the refugees that I have brought, and look at what they have been able to do. If you can keep their country stable, because why are these people running? They are running because their countries are not stable. And let me remind you, these very people who are sending back refugees to Africa are the very people who instigate these troubles that we have in Africa. Remember, when we talk about the Anglophone crisis, Britain has a hand and is now refusing the hand that he has today. And is asking Cameroonians to solve their problems themselves. You see, they are catalysts. Now, look at Libya today. What happened to Libya? Can you compare Libya of dictatorship in 2011 with Libya of democracy after 2011? You cannot. Now, those are two of democracy is worse than Libya of dictatorship. And that is what we have to accept today. And it is caused by who? It's caused by very evil. Then tomorrow they will say, we don't want refugees. And they are the very people who are causing refugees. Look at Mali. Look at South Sudan. Look at Central African Republic. They come when they want to take their gold mines or whatsoever. They create some kind of skirmishes, they kind of wars and crises in order to have a free way in. And that is what we Africans will have to accept. We have to look and reassert our identity. Remember that those who are even running away from Africa are the labor force. It's not just anybody who can run away from Africa, because even if you look at the kind of money that these people spend to run out of Africa, it is not just anybody who can spend that money. And they are the strong labor force that leave Africa to Europe. Why are we allowing this to happen? Let us be able to keep our own people here and be able to actually create that conducive environment for them, send them to the farm, let them work. And I'm sure that there is somebody somewhere who has understood what is happening and wants to give, actually the African the example that they need to follow. Why can't we create that environment to leave our people to be disgraced over there? When you look at the kind of main jobs that our people are even doing over there, you're asking that you find a medical doctor who lives maybe Africa, and then create I mean, I have worked with the Commonwealth organization. I know what I mean. People coming to me to sign a testimony that they are running from war, that they have been persecuted in Africa. I mean, you have lot of people. I'm revealing a secret here. That is what is happening. Just because they want to run away. They want to, what they call the greener pasture. You leave your job here. I had a friend who was earning a salary of 500,000 francs at Camden in Cameroon, and he left the job, went through the sea in order to go to America. What are you going to earn in America when you're earning here 500,000 francs? And then what they do is that they go there and succeed and get to a refugee camp, and after they do their papers, and they are happy that they are American residents, not even citizens. Even if you are a citizen, so what? So that what we are saying is that we Africans, we are the cause of our own problem. We allow the foreign person to penetrate us because we are not used to money, and when they give us the money, we create that kind of skirmish, we create that kind of destabilize our country, and then tomorrow we become a laughing stock. They mock at us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ndimancho. Black Americans over there do not even seem to identify themselves with the black continent. I'm talking as per testimonies that I got from some Africans that are living over there. And of course, in the days ahead, we are going to organize a series of discussions between Africans back home and Africans in the diaspora, because as I was saying, many black Americans over there do not seem to really identify themselves with Africa, and they don't even seem to know about their history. Actually, some of them have even forgotten that their ancestors are from Africa. I don't know whether they have been brainwashed or what. And also, we'll try to also launch those discussions to see what we can do to ensure that those that are living abroad, those who are the diaspora, what they can do to come back home. Because there are many of them too want to come back home. As they say, home is always home. But there are lots of administrative bottlenecks back home, and lots of, they want to create a company, someone wants you to give you money here, give me money, and so on and so forth. At the end, they get discouraged and they decide to stay over there, which is really out of their wish. I think we should go to yourself. Sheikh, do you want to say something? Just one
yes,
and then we go to the second topic.
Right. What I'd like to say is we have made a lot of suggestions, a lot of ideas about Africans coming back. We're forgetting the spiritual level of Africans. You see, why are they looking for greener pastures? Who is going to change whatever it is they're running away from here? They're running away from something. Who is going to change it if they're running away? You see, if they had a high spiritual level, they will see this as an opportunity to do real useful work. If I should give you, recently, for example, my brother-in-law, who's a born American, African-American, was here, just left a few weeks ago. He's bought some land somewhere, substantial, large, about 1 hectare of land, and once he's planning to take his retirement into Africa. And he was surprised when he came here and realized that many of the Africans are instead trying to go out, even though he himself doesn't really feel comfortable where he is. American citizen, whatever it is, all the so-called advantages. For those of us, for those people who have actually lived in the West, what is there to be so proud of? When you know very well what your skin color depicts and portrays as you go out to walk in society. The solution is to push people, and that is why I'm in the spiritual domain. Because I realize that is one of the best things I can do to help my brothers and sisters in Africa. Preach and make them to have a better sense of value. Material is nothing. The real value in this world, when you cite the great people which history retains, none of them has been great because of the wealth they had. They might have been great because of what they did with their wealth, but just being wealthy was not enough to be remembered. How much money did Jesus Christ leave in his bank account? How much money did Mahatma Gandhi leave in his bank account? How much money did Nelson Mandela leave in his bank account? But I don't think any of those people, leaders now in Africa, no matter how much they've got in Switzerland, can rival the achievement which these people have achieved in their countries, because they had a high spiritual level and they set themselves real noble goals of service to others rather than service to self. And that is what we must promote. All the people who made Europe to develop, Louis Pasteur, Isaac Newton, how many of them did it because they wanted to become rich? When then will we acquire that mentality? Right now, there's a young man in Congo called Vital Vitium, who's producing batteries out of plants, out of cassava, and so on. Where are the Africans to promote such ideas? As a young man in Zimbabwe has produced a television set which works on free energy. That means that it doesn't need any power supply. It gets energy straight from the etheric energy field, what they call 0-point energy. And I just said a short while ago that there are some transforming technologies which are coming. And where are the people now in Africa who believe in themselves enough to do that? When I was looking at vibratory medicine, that is medicine curing diseases just by vibrations, I noticed that one of the frequencies, 528 hertz, which has the ability to modify DNA and many other things, I thought to myself, how can I produce 528 hertz easily? To design an electronic circuit is going to take a long time, which I'm doing with time, it may come. But the easiest way is to make something like a pipe, wind pipe or something, which will produce 528 hertz when you blow. So I did calculations. How should this pipe be? And when I finished my calculations, surprise, surprise, I noticed that many of our traditional healers have all got long pipes which they blow. In other words, their healing technology is the next stage of medicine which the world is going into. But because of the brainwashing we have had, we think that in order to become a medical doctor, you have to wear a stethoscope. I know quite a few friends who do that and get a lot of money. You see, when you consult someone just simply, they'll give you a few mites. But when you wear a white robe and you hang a stethoscope and you put it behind the back and say, cough a little bit. Because of the brainwashing which people have had, say, no, this is a real professional. Even though they are the ones who, the international pharmaceutical mafia is responsible for most of the diseases in the world. So, my dear fellow Africans, wake up, believe in yourself, and realize you, as well as all other humans here on earth, you are the representative of God in the world. The Islamic term is Khalifa. Our Christian brothers prefer to say they created you in God's image. It all amounts to saying approximately the same thing. Believe in yourself, wake up, and there's nothing we have to look for others to bring to us.
Thank you so much, Sheikh.
Just 1 second. I'm not 10 seconds. Okay, cannot yes, you cannot take 1 second. That's true. We are very realistic. No, I was just going to say one thing to Sheikh. He's talked about spirituality, which has taught me so much as a Christian too. And I'm saying that these Christians, or Muslim, whatsoever we pray to some God, they need a lot of doctrine and on entrepreneurship, because we are realized that the more and more churches come to Africa, the more Africans gone gaga, and it's bad. And now you realize that in Africans, instead of closing down warehouses and indoors, to open churches, we should rather close churches and open warehouses, because Africans be going through poor, because we believe that when you pray from morning to evening, that is why we need entrepreneurship as Christians or whatsoever. If not, if you open churches in the whole of Cameroon, for example, nothing will change. And therefore, yes,
we should turn all our churches
into enterprises and then pray in the bush, and then that would be very, very effective. Yeah, no, of course, that would be very, very effective. Yes.
Can I answer?
Yes, you can.
There is no direct connection between a high spiritual level and going to church or the mosque. Those two things have nothing in common. You have others who have opened churches and are using it to con people out of their money, as well as in all disciplines. High spirituality has nothing to do with that. It's about loving for your brother what you love for yourself. And those icons I mentioned before, how many times have you seen Nelson Mandela in church? You see, I did not evaluate him by his religiousness. I evaluated him by the purity of his intention and the purity of his initiative and the desire for the good of mankind, because he destroyed the nuclear weapon for that purpose. When Nelson Mandela took over power, South Africa had a nuclear weapon. Nelson Mandela thought that this kind of weapon is not something to be used on fellow humans because of his high spiritual level, even higher than the American presidents. And so he decided to destroy those things. So high spiritual level is what I'm talking about. It's nothing to do with going to church or the number of times you pray or how long you spend the time praying. It is the purity of your intention, your loving for your brother, what you love for yourself, and your desire for your brother to have goodness and to promote and to progress.
Thank you so much, Sheikh Mohammed Ngubong. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, time for us now to move to the second topic of today, consequences of U.S. granting temporary protection status to Africans. Now we're talking about Rwanda welcoming asylum seekers. Now we are talking about the U.S. welcoming asylum seekers and refugees over there. The United States Department of Homeland Security recently granted temporary deportation relief and work permits to Cameroonians living in the United States, and the decision applies to Cameroonians living in the U.S. by April 14 and will last for 18 months. An estimated 12,000 Cameroonians are eligible for the status. Of course, that is what prompted us to take a look at this consequence of U.S. granting temporary protection status to Africans over there. I don't know who would like to start the topic. Kediah, I would like you to start the topic. These are people running away from violent conflict. Others are running away from natural disaster. The United States has some procedure to grant temporary protection status. How is this useful to Africans?
Yes. Firstly, the Africans that are already desperate, they've run out of their continent, they are already in America as refugees, and they want an asylum status, which will give them 18 months to be in that country for protection, which still can be rejected and can still be accepted. Now, it is heartbreaking that in Africa, we lost, as Dr. Ndimancho was saying, that our active population, we lost them during the era of slave trade, which it is one of the part of the African history that at time when I even look at history, I look at the West, I just feel that in some tens of years to come or hundreds of years to come, our children will revenge that because it was so satanic. But those are populations that we lost. We also remember during the era of colonialism, the fact that the whites came here, they colonized us, they control everything, they got the best resources and the best brain, and they left with it. We talk also about neo-colonialism, which it has passed, and they are still there. All those our state sent for scholarship to go and study abroad, instead to bring back this knowledge the way the Chinese people did when they were sent to go and study in America, and they brought back this knowledge to China. Our own brothers that we send, they go, they stay there in Europe. The active population, they gain from the scholarship of the state, they gain all the advantages, they don't come home. Same we have again in America now. The ones that are not even going there for scholarship or being sponsored, the one that they decide to leave Cameroon, go to Nigeria, Brazilian embassy, get visa, move to Brazil and start to walk into through dangerous forests. I thought 2 years ago we even saw a teacher in Cameroon that died somewhere around the forest. They're struggling to move to America. And those are our active population. And they're going there to give out what we can use in Africa to develop Africa. They are going to use it again, still in that very America that our forefathers were there as slaves. Now we go there voluntarily to work to develop that country. That's the problem. What caused them to go there? Crisis. And most of the crises we have in Africa are conflicts in which guns are being used. Who are those supplying the guns to Africa? Still the very West. Still the very America. Still the very Europe that they are saying that they'll be sending refugees to come back to Rwanda and look for asylum through Rwanda before coming back as asylum gainers. They are the ones that have all these weapons, send them to Africa, we fight among ourselves, we go there, they select the good ones, they give them the asylum because they know that they have a lot to give to their country. A medical doctor from Cameroon will never seek asylum in America and is rejected. But when you go there, you have nothing to offer. Your educational qualification is low. Your manpower maybe is weak. They will not give you. They still use that as a way to exploit Africans. And that is the negative aspect of it. And by the time they stay there, they will come back when they're already exhausted, everything is gone, and the African continent will still remain barren and weak. I will go further again. No, there's something I want to say before Mr. Ndiwum will talk, because I know he will talk about it. So it's good I make it clear before he talks about it. The status was given to Cameroonians. I mean Cameroonians from all the 10 regions. Due to the Boko Haram problem we have in Cameroon and the conflict, they did not say war. They did not say war in Northwest and Southwest region. They say conflict. The European Union, all of them, they recognize it as conflict and the war with Boko Haram. So we should know that this status is not given to Anglophone Cameroonians, but to all Cameroonians. We even saw the Bamileke community celebrating and they were happy about it. So we should make this point clear, because we should not make people to believe that it's because of the crisis, like some of our brothers in the diaspora are struggling to lie, to say it's because of the crisis, to make the people to feel hot, like, hey, it's the crisis, the American government is behind us. America has taken this decision because a Cameroon government have decided to have a military accord with Russia. That is why America is taking this. No, it has nothing to do with that. Boko Haram is an international conflict. The American government knows about that, and that's why he's giving us that status.
Thank you, Kediah Malagfe. Ndiwum Emmanuel, I give the microphone to you. Do you want to react to one Kediah says, or you want me to ask your question?
Let me react first before you give your question.
Okay.
I don't know since when Kediah became a prophet that he could read my mind. I know that I was going to talk about it. But of course, we are in a debate. But where I will correct him is we should not make as if the PTS stuff was the TPS stuff was solely a Cameroonian affair. So we should go out of that a bit. It is not a Cameroonian affair.
Yeah, you said that particular one was for Cameroon. That particular one was for Cameroon. Yeah, but generally,
I am saying that it's a general. It's a general. You have
the one we are talking about is for Cameroon.
You have Sudan. You have other countries. I know I'm coming. You have Sudan. You have other countries. So people should not be misled to think that it was only a Cameroonian affair. That I should be very objective. To come again, you know, if you look at the way and the timing that the Americans have decided to grant this status to Cameroon, you have to read a different language, a different handwriting behind it. Look at the timing. U.S. knew for the past 6 years that there was war in Cameroon. Listen, don't put me words. I say U.S. knew for the past 6 years that there is war in Anglophone Cameroon. And why did they not grant this status? You know, there is something in America that they call it their child, and that child is democracy. And as we are talking now, U.S. feels threatened somehow by the Russo-American, Russo-African friendship that has been gaining grounds of late. So you can see that there are certain factors that have triggered America to they would have continued giving to other countries, and they would have as well chosen never to mention Cameroon. Why are they putting Cameroon into this status at this time? They are threatened somehow. Russia just recently signed a military accord with Cameroon. And that could be one of the factors that triggered America. And you know that when we are talking about this temporal protection status, how did our people get there? Our people got there because there is war in Cameroon. They ran away because of their safety. And this status, as they call it, protection status, stems from the need that our people back home, their family houses have been razed to ashes. We have seen summary execution going on our people. We have seen journalists disappear in Cameroon. We take the case of Wazizi because of the war in Northwest and Southwest. We have seen people stranded because all what they labored for has been in ruins because the state of Cameroon has refused to solve what would have been solved with words of mouth, and they choose the military option. Because they choose a military option, it has landed us where we are today. So if the Americans are bringing in this protection, it is one of the ways to say that we recognize that something is not going on in that country. We recognize that people are running away from war in that country. So we should not sit here and we try to read the content of a book by its cover without opening even to the first chapter. The chapters are long. So if you had another question, you can ask.
Okay, no, but I think I'll come back later with another question. Go to Dr. Ndimancho. You know, the first part of the program took a lot of time, so that's why we are trying to see how we can manage time for the second part, as you know. But I'm coming back to you, Mr. Ndiwum.
Well, if you don't have time for the question before I give you the mic, because you had a question to ask.
Okay.
Why do I use Cameroon to summarize? We have often called Cameroon Africa in miniature. So I will say that granting this status to other countries in Africa, and at this particular point in time, pinning in Cameroon, speaks volumes.
Thank you. Dr. Ndimancho, drawing inspiration from the temporary protection status that has been granted to over 12,000 Cameroonians in the United States, I would like to know from you, how helpful will this temporary protection status be to Cameroonians back home?
Well, on one note, this is our labor force that has gone away. And of course, we're expecting our brothers back home soon so that we fix our problems back here. And it has been prolonged. So we may have maybe another 2 years to start thinking whether the US government will bring them back to us so that we fix our problems. Secondly, I would say that in another way, the US government is not helping some of these countries fix their problems. It appears as if they are just like they're waiting for problems to occur, and then they receive people to work in their plantations. And let me tell you, the coronavirus stuff has dealt with America, and they're looking for labor force. I said earlier, in the days of colonialism and slave trade, America wants to repeat something again. Americans don't work. When you go to the US, those who work are even the blacks who work very hard. And they know the potentials of these blacks. And America, this issue of TPS is just a way that America is using to shadow actually their private and evil intentions about Africans. They don't like Africans. Let me tell you, most of these people that they are harboring there are our workforce and people who can change Africa. And they have realized the potentials. Americans will not take people and keep like if they are just if they are going to be what I call liabilities. These people are assets, and that's why Americans are keeping them. They know what they can do. And therefore, with the ravages that the coronavirus has done and taken away much of their manpower, they think that this is another opportunity for them. And that is why they're even granting not just to stay, but the permission to work. Let me tell you that issue. I underline that. The permission to work. It is very, very important for them. Because they feel that they can feel, they hope that they will feel the space that it was created, the vacuum that was created during the health pandemic. And by the time the 2 years or whatsoever is going through, and remember, according to that clause, sometimes they say if that is going to be renewed, they signal you in 60 days. In most of those things, they don't even signal. And they know that when they don't signal within 60 days, it is prolonged. Most of them, they will testify that they don't signal. And it shows that you have to prolong, and nobody, and you have your status, legal status to live and work. So I think that it is, if Americans, after they like these countries, they will not be the support. I listened to an interview. I know you also granted interviews with Tipo Nagy. I listened to another interview about him, and he was thinking that the Africans, especially the African countries, will solve their problems themselves. And Americans will not come and maybe because they are part of our problems. If an American government supports an octogenarian, a dictator, to stay in power, for 40 years and above, what does it mean? It means that American government supports what is going on in that country. And therefore, we have to be very careful. American government is playing that he's so like a Jessica in his way. It pinches you, it bites and blues. It's like a cat. You know, when the cat bites you, it blues, so that you don't feel the pinch. And that is what is happening. It's acting as a catalyst. And we think that American government has to do better. And to do better is that they should help to fix the problems of Africa, the problems of crisis, the problems of war. And most of these issues are born out of political crisis. Even though the TPS says that those who are running away even from natural causes, but most of these people who run away are running away from political crisis, which America is at the center of it all. Because you know, like me, that if you go to each and every of these countries, America has a hand. And to my own opinion, I think that we should be able to come back and build a democracy. I mean, America should come and assist our individual government in building the democracies and helping those people to be able to find back their places back in their home country, not taking them away. Because one of these things, you know, there are a lot of people who stay in America and they cause havoc in their home countries. I don't want to call name. Cameroon is an example. Why is this that? Because I know of many of them. Immediately they started causing havoc, America hastened up. Well, I don't know whether advertently or inadvertently they hastened up to fix their status in living in America so that they cannot be repatriated in their country. Of course, I don't want to call their names, but we know all of them. Why is America harboring them and then giving them this kind of status? Rather, America should tell them to go back home and fix their problems, or they should stop causing problems in their home country. Why? America accepts this because they know that when they cause these problems, they will be able to come back and be able to actually harvest. Because it's only in crisis that the foreign powers is able to come in and harvest the minerals in the country. They are able to come in and be able to dig in what they were not able to have in a peaceful country. Okay. So let them be able to solve the problem and sending back all those people who cause havoc in their home country and not giving the status, because that is a breach. That should be a breach in democracy.
Thank you, Dr. Ndimancho. We hand over the mic now to Sheikh Mohammed. Does this indicate the willingness of the United States to help African nations that are in conflict to resolve their problems? I'm talking about the TBS.
Unfortunately, your televiewers who typically follow the mainstream media do not receive 70% of what is actually happening in the world. There's something called Operation Mockingbird, which was done by the CIA several years ago, which involved infiltrating the entire media worldwide in order to influence the editorial line in a direction compatible with the interests of America. That is ongoing. The second thing I'd also like to mention is that many of these so-called conflicts people are mentioning, the doctor made something summarily, like he said, they are directly responsible. Just look at the coincidence. As soon as Gaddafi says we want to create an African currency, African monetary fund, and so on, trouble starts in Libya. As soon as it is announced that the Nigerian economy has now superseded South Africa, and they are now the first economy in Africa, Boko Haram comes up. Now, this is not a coincidence. And we will never be able to solve our problems when we're waiting for the see. It's like the people who have who lit the fire. You are counting on them to come and put off the fire. That can never work. That is why we ourselves must develop the ability to solve our problems. Concerning those parts which I say people might not be informed about, there is a general in America called General James Dickinson. He is the commander of the American Space Force, which has now become the International Space Force. It was created by Donald Trump, the same Donald Trump who demanded 1,000 patents to be released to humanity. Now ask yourself just one question. They're creating a space force to fight who? Asteroids? This is just an indication that there are many things happening people are not informed about. And many of the shortages, there's a great shortage of manpower related to this space force I'm talking about, and which stretches right to Pine Gap in Australia. And you're going to find lots of encouragement for people to immigrate in order to fill these vacancies, which are not being announced. Because there are many things happening in the world which are happening under the carpet. And the mainstream media usually is a media which is used to manipulate, to indoctrinate, and to brainwash. But as time goes on, Africans are learning. When I look at the amount of effort which has been made to vilify Russia, almost all the war scenes in all the films have been cut and thrown onto the internet saying Putin is doing this, he's killing all the Ukrainians, he's doing this or that. When I talk to people outside, I realize they are now learning to go within, onto the spiritual body and feel. And they feel that Putin is the one who's doing the right job.
Yeah,
so that we are now transcending the position where we are influenced by controlling what we see and what we hear. And that is the only way Africa will solve their problem. If you're going to analyze intellectually what the Western media is prepared, you will not get anywhere, because what it comes out of the media itself is controlled. Look at the field of medicine. Medicine in America in the 18th century was not different from medicine as we know it in Africa. Plants, tree barks, roots. And they had this rich culture that they are indigenous American Indians, some Europeans who migrated, and Africans who came from here. Vaccination, for example, was introduced in America by an African slave. Now, that was medicine in America. Then somebody came along who wanted to take the whole thing for himself, called Rockefeller, who had monopolized the petroleum industry used for energy. They realized from petroleum you can also get chemicals used for fertilizers, you can get pharmaceuticals. So in order to create pharmaceuticals which he can patent and get a lot of money, they have to influence the medical profession to deviate from the natural medicine we knew into what we now know. And many doctors were put in prison. Others were given, for example, the board which was created to manage the medical schools. Half of the medical universities were shut down during this period. $100 million grant was given to this organization. Once you create such a body and you give them clear directives, then the medical doctor who follows the line of the international pharmaceutical mafia is confirmed, and he has the right to practice. The one who tries to be recalcitrant is either put in prison, or at least they will refuse him practice because under the grounds that he doesn't know. And that enabled them to recover this industry, which is now being used to spread disease all over the world. Just one example. So we stopped relying on the West.
Okay,
one example, please.
Okay.
In Africa now, we are having an estimated 1 million people dying from malaria. And the amount of money spent per year in Africa to treat malaria is $20.7 billion. Bill Gates was willing to spend $4 billion in order to promote the production of a vaccine against malaria, even though $50 million used to grow a certain plant called Artemisia annua will have eradicated malaria in Africa as it has done in China. But what did they do? They instead poisoned Dr. To Rwanda of Congo, who did research on this plant and proved it using the methods of scientific methods that it is the cure for malaria in Africa. So where will Africans go if they keep waiting for the West to come and solve their problem? Even here in Cameroon, people try to promote this plant, and in Bangante, a plantation of 3 hectares was ransacked by 3 lorries of soldiers brought by the local GO. And some of my contacts inside the pharmaceutical industry have informed me that the orders to destroy that plantation came straight from Geneva, the headquarters of the World Health Organization. So when we have that kind of thing going on, how then can we be relying on any kind of thing to help? When I left secondary school, 1981, about 15 people went abroad.
Okay.
And we're only 2 of us here in Cameroon now from all those who went.
Okay.
The rest, the genius who was first in the 1981 GCE A-levels, called Bombay Adolf, he did more than 7 projects for the British Army. The day he decided to come on retirement in Cameroon, promptly he died. Everybody knows what happened. I don't know, somehow Africans, they don't see.
Okay, thank you, Sheikh. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, you got pretensions already signaling that I'm sure you guys were calculating 5 minutes, but just the last round of the table, your final word, Kediah, so that sometimes sweet things do not last for long.
Yes,
So
I would like to take this opportunity to greet Ophir Melo, director of Ngaoundere, and to tell the government that everything is getting sour because of this crisis in Ngor-Ketunja, and all of them, they are keeping silence. We have elites in Ngor-Ketunja that they should work with. I know of big elites in Yaoundé that the government is collaborating with them, working with them to fight these terrorists in their various divisions. But that of Ngokutunja, they have been silenced. That's why you see Field Marshal is doing everything, and the Ngokutunja is getting Nsah by day, by day, by day. I would like the head of government to look for the elites in that division, which I am part of, so that we can work hand in glove to make most of these our boys drop their arms, go to the DD center, so that we can have peace in our division.
Ndiwum Emmanuel, your final word. I know you
just a quick one to remind Dr. Ndimancho that I think the war in Cameroon, you cannot tax it on the head of the U.S. They could be in behind. I think France, everybody knows, it is not a hidden secret. France has a hand in it. Since we don't have time, what I want to say is that, let me talk on the perspective of Cameroon. Our problems can be solved by us if the willingness is there. We cannot deal with people who spend taxpayers' money out of the country all the time, and the same services and pleasuric buildings that they go to enjoy there, they don't have it in their mind that they can export or import those structures and build in their country. That is what has been frustrating Cameroonians. And just a quick one. We are saying that US should send back these people to Cameroon. Remember, even a criminal has his rights. We have seen some people who were ferried back to Cameroon from US. Let's not forget in a hurry. Last year till today, we don't have an account of where and how they went to and they were treated in Cameroon. So we should not only be in there, we should tax, who our government to tax. If they have to bring in these people, let's bring them in, hoping that human rights, fundamental human rights, will be respected in the process.
Thank you. Dr. Ndimancho, your last word.
My last word, Boh Elvis, would be actually to the people of Kornoni. On the 19th of this month, April, there was a violent wind that blew across the village called in Noni subdivision, took away the hospital roof, the district hospital, took away the roof of the GHS called Noni, took away the roof of the palace, and many homes have been many people have been rendered homeless. And right now, as we speak, a lot of people are homeless and they are begging for aid. I think that it is also out of goodwill that many people run to the aid of the people of Kornoni who have been hit by this violent wind that came. It is not only to speak in Cameroon. I think even political leaders here, we don't know any color. Anybody can help, because this is an issue of the community, issue of the citizen, and we count on being brothers. And therefore, at this particular point in time, the people of Kornoni are in dire need of help, and they're asking any help from anywhere, even from their enemies. They're asking for sympathizers. Yes.
Thank you to Sheikh Mohammed.
Yeah, well, just one word. Africans and African leaders should stop being naive. In 2020, there were 626 million surveillance cameras in China. They give the Chinese the privilege of building the headquarters of the African Union, key in hand. That is naivety. Where strategic decisions on Africa have been taken. What we need in Africa, I remind again, unity, self-sufficiency, meaning self-sufficiency both intellectually and materially, and discretion. It is not for foreign companies to come and explore and find out what is where, because that will all lead to war. It is for us to find out ourselves and manage the information very well, so that it only comes out when and how we want it.
Thank you, Sheikh Mohammed. Thank you so much for our guests. Thank you for coming to the program. Of course, during the next edition of the program, we'll make sure we get one topic so that we can be able to really exhaust it, because I remember lots of things that you guys wanted to say. We could not go round and round again to be able to handle the issues or get contradictory views. Thank you for watching. I want to thank the entire production team for the work, and the program was coordinated by Kumuluna and supervised by Brian Tambe and Boh Elvis. Thank you for watching. See you next week for another edition, God willing. Bye-bye.